So what is an ancestor reading and how do you do one, either for yourself or for other people? Well, I'm going to caveat this by saying that there are probably lots of different ways that you can do ancestor readings, but this is a way that I've devised in order to support the ancestor healing work that I'm doing. And if you don't know me, I'm Katie Gerard and I run courses on ancestor healing, and I also do ancestor work with individuals. So this reading for a lot of people is the first step to looking at how they start to work with their ancestors. So what we've basically done is we've put together a reading that's based on a genogram. And a genogram basically is used within medicine and within health to map a person's family history and to look at where various genes or various health risks may come from. But genograms aren't just used in medicine, they're also used within therapy as well, in a similar way. So they're used to look at points of tension, used to look at things like, for example, patterns of abuse, looking at where family members may have been cut off, looking at various different things that makes up the system that that person has come from. And what we do when we do a genogram style reading, rather than putting down the facts and the information, is we look at the energy. So we're looking for things that maybe we're not aware of, or we're looking for things that maybe we haven't considered. So we're looking at the pattern of the energy, and we can take those cards further back than our memories can go. We also maybe are not aware of certain things within the family. So we may not be aware of experiences that family members had. And in a healing context, the reason that we do this is because we're looking for points where we may need to add healing. So we're looking for unresolved conflict. We're looking for points of trauma. We're looking for energy and emotions that were repressed and not processed. So if we think about the way that energy works, we're past the energy of our ancestors, and sometimes this is due to really the experiences that our parents give us, the beliefs they give us, the way they parent us being based on the way their parents and their grandparents, etc., lived and parented. But we also know, due to transgenerational and epigenetic research, that a trauma that's experienced by an individual before the birth of their descendant means that this energy and this body reaction to that trauma can be passed down, and it can choose to either turn on or off specific genes. So there may be things that our bodies are instinctively doing in order to avoid the trauma of the past. And what we're also doing is we're looking for the ancestors to communicate with us during this reading. So we're looking for ancestors who would like to reach out to us to show themselves through the energy of the cards. And by bringing the card up, by studying it, you can see by the feeling of the card whether that person is willing to talk. You will very quickly be, this person is somebody that would like to work with you. And what we're also looking for within this initial ancestor reading is we're looking for ancestors who are willing to step forward in order to be guides for us. They can be a bridge between this world and the ancestral world, and they can be a bridge between us and any ancestors who may be harder to reach. So you can use any picture cards at all. I usually use the cards I design myself, but for the purposes of this video, I'm going to show you with a tarot deck. and with an animal spirit deck. So we'll start with the animal spirit deck, and I'll just show you a really simple layout. So what you would do is you would ask your client to sit and spend time with the card deck. So you'll ask them to shuffle it, and when you're asking them to shuffle it, you're asking them also to visualize themselves as the middle of their family tree. So you're asking them to see and to visualize those branches coming off, to think about siblings, to think about parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles. So your client will choose which cards go down. So you will always kind of work with the basic elements. You'll always work with child or the person themselves, parents, grandparents. And even if the person isn't in touch with a parent, that line is still there. So you're still looking at that line. So that person then may choose and tell you that they also have step parents. They may choose to tell you of significant friends who are lifelong and important in their lives, or important in their parents' or grandparents' lives. They may choose to put down aunts and uncles and cousins, and they may choose to investigate some areas of the family further. So we're going to do the very brief thing first, and then we'll show you after this how you would go down different lines. So when the client hands us the cards, we would cut them like we would any other reading, and then we place them so that the client can see the way that the cards are falling. So the client has a lot more control over turning the cards over. So we start with them, that's the signifier, and then we ask them, do they have any siblings? And would they like the siblings to be part of the reading? Older siblings are placed before, younger siblings are placed after. Any significant friends would go down at this point as well. Then we add the parents. So this comes in another line. So we've got the eldest parent first, and then the youngest parent. And then the grandparents are the same way. So we would basically add the eldest grandparent of the eldest parent. So for the purposes of the video, we'll say this is the father, and this is the father's father, and this is the father's mother, and this is the mother, the mother's mother, and the mother's father, and the mother's mother. Then we can choose just to put a line backwards, just to sort of signify what that family line is like. So we're looking then at the surname. So the surname of the father's father, father's mother, mother's father, mother's mother. And we would ask then if they wanted to add any aunts, uncles, any community group leaders, anybody that's had a significant influence on the family. And then we would ask our client to turn the cards over as they felt it was necessary. So they then take control of the cards. So the first one is always themselves. So in this instance, we have frog, and we're looking at the frog, and we may at this point want to discuss a little bit about the feelings that we've got from that card, or we may simply ask them to turn the next ones over. So your client can choose which cards they turn at which point. So for this reading, what we'll do is we'll turn the parent cards first. So we'll do the father, and we have the owl, and then we will turn the mother card over. So we've got an owl, a lamb, and a frog. And if you notice, we've got 3 different types of card here. So we have 3 different elements, and this may be relevant. So it's these sort of details that you're starting to pick up as you put these cards out. And I'm going to look at the sibling relationship. So the sibling, again, The sibling is the same card pack as the person in there. So, but you notice immediately that there's a connection between the swan and the owl. So you've got two birds, and these two birds may show a significance between the closeness of this parent and this elder sibling. So this would be something that you would want to bring up to then start discussing with your client. And then you would again ask them, which cards would you like to move forwards through? So we're going to work with the father because we've got this sibling link here that we're following back. So we will do father's father and father's mother. So you'll notice the link with the children here. So you may look at this and you may say, did these grandparents have a strong connection with these children? So now all of the cards are open. You would start looking for anything that could be a point of tension. So there doesn't look like a lot within this particular set here. So if you look, possibly the cheetah and the lamb, there might be a point of tension there. So a point of tension between the mother, who's obviously in a hunting role as a hunting card, and the lamb, which is a animal that's hunted, might cause a disconnect. So there may be a bullying or an aggressive relationship there. Then we have the peacock. Now the peacock is very, very beautiful, very magnificent, as is the cheetah, but in two different ways. You've also got this link here, that bird energy with the swan. So it could be that this person may have a similar name to this line. So they may have been named for somebody within this line. If we look on the other side, we have the fact that the owl and the swan are connected, but there doesn't seem to be much sort of connection above. So the crocodile, the otter, if we're looking at points of reference, we could see that the sky here, there's lots of black sky in these three here. So it could show that there is something within these three people that is almost a genetic thing. So there could be within these three people a history of depression or something like that. So we have to obviously be careful not to put words in our clients' mouths, but they will tell you what the cards are saying to them as well. So the fact that we've got these really pictorial cards, they will come out and show the things that your client is already aware of. So they will help you as they go. So if we're looking here for gateways, for people that want to speak, what we would want to do is we would want to look at the energy. So we would spend a little bit of time really focusing on the characters in the cards. So if you're looking at a spread here and this much of the spread or even this much of the spread is still alive, you're not going to get a lot of character gateways. You're not going to see ancestors necessarily. You're just looking at family patterns. So we're going to move on now and start looking at the ancestral line. So we look at all these cards and we would ask our client, which of these lines would you like to follow? And it may already be clear. So I think the peacock line is looking very interesting here. So I think I'm going to follow the peacock and follow this line down. So you'd have got your client to reshuffle the pack, and you will have put the cards back in a way that can't be really obviously clogging together. So you'll make sure that they've gone in different places. Cut the deck and then start with the person who's doing the reading in the bottom. And then we're going to add their mother and their grandmother. So those were the 3 cards that came up. So we'll have those near the bottom. And then we're going to look at the great-grandfather and great-grandmother. And then we're going to take it a line up. Great-great-grandfather and mother. So that's from this line and then from this line. So we're going up here. So you can then choose to put down any cards that you feel go through. So I'm going to send this through the matriarchal line. So I'm going to put an extra card here and see what that gives us. So let's start right here at the bottom, and we have the bear as the person in the reading. I'll move this a bit closer. And we have the oyster. So we can see the darkness in these two, and we can't really see a lot more connection there. And then we can see earthworm. So these are the 3 there. So you'll notice the link between the 2 sort of cards there, the 2 earth cards and the water card in the middle. So we're going to have a look and see from the matriarchal line first. So we've got the dragon and we have the unicorn. So this is a really interesting sort of batch here. So what we want to look at is the relationship that we're seeing here. So we would look for any points of tension. We have a real colourfulness here linked to the darkness of these 2 cards. So we looked earlier and we saw that there could be a disconnect between these 2 figures. We're seeing less of that now, and we're looking at a slightly different thing here. So, but we are seeing the colours in these 2 cards and then the darkness in these 2 cards echoing each other. So we're seeing a little bit of a split here. And then we'll start with the father's line, or the great-grandfather's line. So we've got the frog and the peacock. So those are the same cards that sort of came out earlier. So this is that line. So I would, at this point, because this peacock card has come up before, I would ask the client the significance of the peacock, because it might simply be telling us of a name. So it could be that your client then says, oh yes, that's their maiden name. So you have to be sort of aware of this. And then we can look, we've got the lamb and we have the crocodile. This is really interesting actually. So where we've got the lamb and the crocodile here, we've got 2 of the cards that are kind of aggressive cards, or possibly aggressive card, and the hunted card here. So there may be a relationship here that could be worth exploring. And then right at the end, we've got elephant. So we would look through all of these cards and see if we could find a connection, and then we would look and see which of these cards wish to speak. So I think this one, the peacock card, I'll see if I can get it to go in focus for you. I don't think I can. So I would ask about the peacock card. I would look at the significance of that. And I would feel the significance of the lamb here, and I would question the unicorn and look at what the unicorn is representing. So possibly the unicorn is a sign of something that, or an ancestor that would like to talk. So we've changed the deck now. So I want to show you using tarot cards, and I'm going to show you how you would look at a limiting belief or a habit or a pattern. So I'm going to ask the cards about my ancestors' relationship with money. So I'm going to start with me. So I'll shuffle again and cut the cards a couple of times, get them into the right position. And I'll start with me. And then I have my parents. Then I have my grandparents. And then I'm going to go 1 line up. So I will just pop this here and just 1 line for each. And I'm going to start with myself and ask what my relationship is with money. And that's given me the Sun. So that's very much building card. It's very much about projects. It's very much about Rome. Rome not being built in a day, which explains how everything seems to be started and not finished. Then my father, or actually my mother, as my mother was slightly older, I have the Seven of Wands, which is very interesting card to come out. So my mother had a lot of inheritance from various different people, and that was really the source of much of her stability. So the Seven of Wands, it might also be a clue as to where the inheritance started from. So we've always wondered in our family where the finances came from, and my great-grandfather very significantly died in the trenches. So there may have been something to do with him, where this inheritance that my great-grandmother had that then went down through the family came from. So that might be a clue there. So we've got the Six of Wands and victory for my dad. And he this is kind of showing that he maybe had to fight for money for a little bit, that he didn't see it as being something that he naturally was entitled to. So we're going to look at my mum's family. So we have my mum's father, which is the Queen of Wands, which is very much about fiery, I would say. It's a positive card. I'll investigate that a little bit more. Then I don't know why that's upside down, but that's interesting that this has come up upside down. And we're looking it's a Roman, this is my mother's nan. And then we have the other side, oh, that one's upside down as well. The Page of Wands. So we've got two upside down cards. We'll see which other of these are upside down. And then we have the King of Cups. So we've got my grandfather and my grandmother, and then the line coming back. So we have oppression. That makes a lot of sense. We have great strength and the Nine of Wands, and that makes a lot of sense as well. We have the Eight of Wands and swiftness. That's quite interesting. And this one also upside down, the Knight of Wands. So when we look at this, I would then have a little bit of a think and look at what these cards are representing. So I'm going to ask them sort of one by one what they're saying to me, what they're trying to communicate. And this is really interesting here, the Ten of Wands. My mother's dad's family they were socialists, they were working class, they were communists at some point, but this was his mother rather than his father, which probably copes with the great strength. So there's clearly a real sort of poverty, I would say, within this side of the family. So that's something to really think through. Then looking at this side of the family, we have the upside down card may represent a difficulty with money. So this may be where my blockages are. So these three cards here with the line of my grandmother going backwards, and her line was Scottish and Irish. So her Irish relatives moved out of Ireland with the Gortamore. So there may be a real sort of difference with money there. That might be something to explore. But I would, if I wanted to now do some work, I would spend some time looking at these cards and investigating exactly what these two upside down cards are trying to communicate. So that basically is how you would do a direct question or a direct belief to follow back. And that's how you would do an ancestor reading.